Good afternoon. This is Jason Dean coming live from a new new interview segment. I always talk about how when I do this wacky channel, I have new content uploaded. My favorite thing in the world is to always have guests from different backgrounds. Try to always have things tied together with film, obviously. And so I was very much looking forward to this show. So I want to welcome aboard Lenny, Arey, and Erin Kirkpatrick. They, I think it was probably 2 or 3 months ago, maybe, when you guys put out your original show, Lens.
I think that's when I uploaded it on Facebook.
When it officially came out. And I've known you guys. I've known these guys for a really long time. We met. I was probably like.
Must have been before COVID, probably, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, it might have been 5 to 6 years ago or so.
Yeah, probably so.
But I used to be involved with playing drums for an open mic at Fog Bar. That used to be a really great, awesome place. It's been closed, unfortunately, for a long time. But it was a real beloved place for a lot of local musicians and people who like good food and things. And so there used to be a really cool open mic there every Monday, and it ran for a few years, probably like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And I took over. There was a friend who used to run, or who used to play drums for it, and then he kind of took a break, and then I started doing it along with Vince Gabriel and Glenn Dubois. And so I started doing it for a few years, and that's where I met both of you guys. And Erin and I have become like really great, big time movie buddies. Go to see all kinds of movies. And Lenny, both of you guys were performing at that open mic, and it was a magical time, and definitely missed that place. And I remember it was probably about a year ago. Yeah, at least a year ago, I think, Erin, when you first told me that you were working on this project with Lenny, and I know you guys had done, and Lenny, you have both of you guys have real eclectic backgrounds. That's why I really wanted to have you guys on the show.
Sure.
So I know you guys originally were doing like a music project together. You worked on one of Lenny's albums, and then I think it was about a year ago you had told me, and I think you even had some of the clips on your phone, and you would show me little clips of this kind of like crazy weird like variety show thing that you were going to be doing, like this, like I don't know, like a skit comedy thing, and things like that of course take a long time to produce, put together, especially when you're doing it yourself. And then I remember just recently you guys uploaded the video, and I was like, this is great. Like, this kind of really speaks about your both of yours, you can see your personalities all over this kind of finished product. And you were mentioning that you got plans for more, another edition or a sequel, if you will, to this for this original base. So welcome aboard. So you guys want to
Thank you very much.
talk about what this whole great what makes up this whole great like comedic odyssey that you guys created.
So we finished Lenny's album Free for the Taking in 2021, and Lenny came to me asking if I would be willing to try this project. We were going to give it like a year and see if it was something we wanted to do, if it was worth doing.
Or if we could even do it.
And we spent that year and part of the next filming. And then it took me another good year and a half to finally edit everything together. So it's been a long process, but we learned a lot along the way.
Yeah, we kind of picked away at it. We weren't too hell-bent to do it overnight or anything. And certainly we were flying by the seat of our pants. Certainly no real format, just kind of a generalization, kind of a culmination of a lot of different things. I know myself, I was trying to pull in from, remember the Red Green Show?
Oh, definitely.
Out of Canada, which is always a good influence. Mm-hmm. Just all kinds of different places we were kind of pulling in from. And it's kind of like part vaudeville, part variety show, part I just don't really know what.
I remember when I
part unpredictable.
Yeah, my first kind of thing was like, after I first saw it was like, it was definitely unique, but it kind of reminded me of like that vaudeville, like that classic kind of vaudeville theater that existed in America for a long time. And then it also kind of reminded me of a little bit of the work of Christopher Guest.
That's a compliment.
And where, legendary comedian, and done so many great movies, and they also use lots of improv in a lot of their films. And but it you kind of, I don't know, to me that was like my first kind of impression. So the whole thing, I mean, you guys were working on this for a long time. Kind of, were you guys working on this whole project straight out of the gate, like, or was it like piecemealing it, and like you'd have to take breaks because of scheduling, or you get back to it when you could do it? It was like a steady, or was it like a steady?
You had everything written when you came to me, so then it was just figuring out, well, how do we put it together?
Sure.
Because you also had the space in your garage, and I had equipment. Not necessarily the best equipment, but we were going to use what we had. And I think the most investment you put into it was the lights.
Yes.
And we didn't really use those very much.
No, not very much. Well, what it was, too, is my former automotive body shop. I ran it there for a lot of years. And it became, I closed a lot of years ago, and it became defunct. So Erin started talking about green screen. I said, green screen? Hey, sounds pretty good. So we came up with a shade.
Lenny.
She was kind of describing the shade, and I said, all right, well, I'll see what I can find on the local Warren True Value. Came up with a really obnoxious, crazy, bright, I don't know what you would call it, but it seemed to work quite well.
But it was exactly the shade that we needed. It was
nice.
Perfect. Yeah. Lenny doesn't live in the modern age necessarily in terms of technology and everything.
No.
So I had to
Prehistoric most of
explain
the
the
time.
concept of green screen to him and the kind of green that we needed, and by God, you nailed it.
There you go. There you go.
So he painted the outside and the inside with green, and
Yeah, that was one of the things too. I remember you were, as this whole thing was kind of like kind of slowly being formalized. I remember you were showing me pictures of that on your phone, and it was like really funny. And I was like, "What the heck's going on here? Like, what are you guys doing over there?" And originally I thought you were.
Actually, we had no idea at all, Jason. We had no idea at all.
Originally, I thought, like, and I probably misunderstood, but I thought you guys were going to start hosting, like, some kind of variety show or something out of your house.
There were plans for
Yeah.
that. You
plans.
had talked a lot about, like, bringing in guests and stuff, but that was far flung from where we actually landed.
Yeah,
A little bit too complicated at that point.
Well, it's like everything else. You have a lot of grand ideas, and sometimes you start with a lot of enthusiasm and grand ideas, and then things kind of go to a certain point, then and we had to pick it up later on.
That was kind of where we landed too. We filmed everything that you had written, and we filmed a couple of music videos.
So actually, didn't we have 2 episodes? Did we do 2 episodes?
No, we had 2 music videos.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
one
That was
of
the start
one-
of your collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah, one of them hasn't made it on there yet. Well, 2 of them haven't made it. There's also the Star Spangled Banner that you
Oh,
did
yes.
as a test.
Yeah, there are a few pieces that we haven't actually gotten to. Yeah, the
Do you
Star
guys
Spangled.
have is there a, I don't know, like a YouTube channel or some like website anywhere on the worldwide internets?
No, not yet.
Is that maybe something you would
That's
do at
something
some point, like a
Erin
little
has to
YouTube
do.
channel or like
Yeah.
an Instagram page?
We're adding it to my list.
Well, as always, a thing that always gives us an impetus is to have just having you come up here and show interest in our artistic endeavors. And so that, with the feedback that we have gotten, was always very encouraging, very positive. So, that's what you need sometimes. Sometimes you don't know how it's going to be accepted, if people are going to like it. So you try to do a little bit and see how it flies. And I think we've had some good response to it. So that means, we're certainly going to do some more. I just have to get the junk out of the place so we can reclaim it.
I have
During the winter months, things kind of get brought in. And
You've been busy. I have made Lenny a SoundCloud, so you can find Lenny on soundcloud.com/Lenny Arey.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that for
his music. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought too, because you guys have so many different backgrounds, or so many different interesting things about your backgrounds. But one of the things I wanted to definitely talk about was your music that you've been doing. Because I remember when I first met you, when you first started coming to the open mic. Erin of course is a really wonderful singer, and I remember you used to come and do like anime. You would cover some like Japanese anime
Yeah.
covers,
Yeah.
and it was just wild, and it was like it was awesome and beautiful, but it was like, when the hell do you see this at an open mic? And I remember like, and then you started singing like started getting to some like jazz standards and some cover tunes, rock tunes. But I remember Lenny, when you first started coming, you used to bring, one week you'd bring like a banjo, the next week you'd play bass. You'd have like a different instrument every week, and I loved because the open mic like it was great in a lot of ways, but there's always sometimes it can get stagnant with like you kind of and it's actually a good feature of it, but you see a lot of the same faces, and you kind of get, everything becomes like pretty predictable. It's like, okay, so and so is here, what you're gonna hear. You're gonna hear like the Bob Dylan hits of 1964, sure, or whatever, and that's cool. But you can kind of count on that. But with you, it was like, well, I don't know what is going to happen from one week to the next, and it was like whether you like it, but whether you like it or not, whether that's someone's taste or not, from the audience or whatever, I automatically love that, because it's like it's the energy is kind of different, and you're just bringing a variety. And that was one thing that always stood out to me was, it was, you didn't know what, and then sometimes you would just bring your bass, and we got to play together a lot over that, but sometimes you would not want to have anybody on stage to play to accompany you, that like the house band that I was part of, or sometimes you would, I remember a couple times you said, oh, let's just do bass and drums, and I'm just going to sing these parts that traditionally have guitar. But anyway, so it was just a cool, like, you just never knew. You never knew what was coming down the pike each week. And
I think the great word I like to use is progressive.
Yeah.
Always changing. And even the other thing I've done over the years, I've done a lot of studio stuff over the years. Well, I did for a long time. Vince and I, when I first started doing studio albums, Vince and I did one a year for like 8 years.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that after getting to know you, and I was like blown away by how much creative work you've done together, especially with Vince.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I'd like to do back then is I'd pick. These were all concept CDs, and each one was done on a different subject, and done with a different musical arrangement. So that way, I've always tried to fight being pigeonholed.
Sure.
The other thing is, how would you describe a lot of stuff that I've done? Well, I don't know. That's up to the all up to the ear of the listener.
The first album I heard of yours was like Fog was going on at the time, and I remember you had finished it was like a sea shanty album, like it was all songs about the sea and ocean.
Okay, that might have been somewhere in the mix there. I did 3 CDs on bluegrass music.
Yeah, and I remember it was so different than what you were playing at the open mic, and I was like, wow, this is Lenny. Like, it really surprised me. And I remember talking to Erin. It was a few years back, but I remember talking to Erin and mentioning to her, I was like, oh, this is Lenny. Like, definitely not like, definitely can't be accused of like, or the one, not that it's a bad thing, but sometimes it can be, but like the one trick pony syndrome where you're like, so it was like, wow, it just was very surprising, and I actually really liked that album.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that was the one. Let's see if I can regurgitate the name. That was White Sails Upon Blue Water Behind Gray Granite Grows Bluegrass. Right.
Exactly. That sums it all up. And I know with you, Erin, you have like all kinds of tastes and interests. We met there, and we had a real found we have a real like passion and love for movies, and especially at the time it was when the whole Marvel movie craze was taking over, and so we started going to movies all the time, and you were also really into anime, and at the time I didn't really know too many people who were into anime, but then you were also kind of bringing that same kind of eclectic thing that Lenny was bringing to the open mic. It was always different. It was always unique, and I remember you told me a story about living in L.A. for a while to do voiceover work. You know,
A hot minute.
so it was, you know,
Minute?
It was a hot minute.
I don't know if
good
you want to
man.
share any stories about your kind of eclectic background and some of the things that are really influential for you or inspiring.
Well, during the open mic time, I stumbled onto the open mic, and it was like the world opened up because there was the stage, and I'd just been waiting for that. And after a while, I decided to do vocal lessons again. So then I was performing whatever I was studying with my vocal teacher, and building the repertoire and the strength of the voice and everything. But always just like I'm a B-side person. I like the unheard of songs and
B-side person.
yeah, yeah. So like I like to try the weird and the unheard and bring it out there for everybody to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, again, when you first brought up that you guys were going to be doing this project, I was like, yeah, that makes sense because there's that similarity. You guys have a lot of that in common. And I have pretty eclectic taste too, and I'm influenced by a lot of different things, and so, you know, I totally get that. And one of the things that I talked about when I did a review for Lens was like a few days ago.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I talked about that I really liked, probably the biggest aspect for it, why I found it why it was the most attractive aspect to it was kind of the DIY, almost like punk rock kind of thing where
You missed that, yeah.
where you just kind of, you're just kind of going for it. So many times, when people are working on projects, whether it's like where they're publishing something or trying to get something published, whether it's themselves or trying to get it published by some company or trying to record an album, and sometimes that is impossible because of the financial burden, shooting a movie, all those things. But then you have a fraction of the, of society or people that are a little bit, maybe kind of a little bit fearless, but a little bit, outside of, what the status quo says you should do or not do as far as getting your art out there. So I always love that kind of ethic of, you just kind of try to make things happen, and not, a lot of the movies that I cover on this channel, most of the movies that I love are kind of in the old school, grindhouse vein. And those are all like, they're really terrible. But they're also wonderful. And they truly are so bad that they're good. But they're all passion projects. And I love, like, even if the movie is not very good, or at least maybe there are some things about it that, are really intriguing or fun or, inspiring, it's essentially like a passion project, and they're just kind of going for it. And it's like this guerrilla style of making art.
Guerrilla style.
And I just love, that's what attracted me so much after watching, why I really dug this whole thing, what you guys were doing, because it just had that, you guys were just doing it, and not and obviously not taking yourself too seriously, but there's some serious,
kill it every time.
There's some serious things in there, like there's a little bit of social commentary, but there's some serious threads in it, but yet, it's, you can laugh at yourselves, and I think
Most essential.
and you're just going for it, and you're just doing it, and I just love, like, what was it, warts and all, like, it's just doing it, and I love that whole, I love art that does that, because it's just, I think it's kind of those ingredients is kind of why we get attracted to art, in its various forms in the first place. It's just like, it kind of ignites some kind of passion. And so that's how I try to operate, the wacky things that I do, whatever. That's kind of my compass as far as how I create things. So that was like automatic. I'm like, okay, I totally identify with what you guys were doing. so one of the things too, I know you alluded a little bit about it too, a little bit before about it, but I was wondering if you want to like share some of your influences on this whole kind of thing, this project, Lenny, or musical influence, or just because I know you're pulling from lots of different things.
Actually, senility is always a great influence. Well, like I said, I think what happens too, actually, that's one of the places I started, is I just took a simple white-lined notebook and just wrote down any possible places that I would be pulling things in from. And then you kind of, I guess it's a little bit of a free-flowing of thoughts. You kind of come up with an idea. And also, interestingly enough, little things that, I always called it cross-pollination, which was a song that Erin and I put together back on the Free for the Taking CD, which is cross-pollination is when people influence each other, whether it be gags or music or anything else. And Erin actually has some really good ideas, too. She has a certain skewed sense of humor, which works out really nicely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I read his skits and when he presented it to me, immediately what I thought of was like the Muppet Show.
Okay. Yep.
Though Lenny has not seen the Muppet Show, like that is totally the type of humor, and I'm down for that. Dr. Demento, the Muppet Show, that kind of thing. I was like, that's this vein.
Yep.
And
a little warped, a little skewed, but that's all right. That's all right. Or another word I like to always use is droll.
Yes.
The word droll.
Another
weird,
thing.
strange, a little bit out there, unpredictable, but that's where it's at.
Another thing, too, is Lenny has such an incredible stage presence, naturally. Like, he really commands any performance he's in. And he hadn't really seen that before because he's on the stage and performing. So I really wanted to take the opportunity to record him so he could see all the things he's doing.
Well,
one thing how actually animated.
Yeah,
he actually is.
Like see how good you are at this.
Well, I really have to credit her because, as I have said, at sake of being repetitious, I've done a lot of studio work, but I had no idea what I look like up there. You don't know.
Sure. You just did it.
So Erin started to do some filming and showed it to me. Like, hey, that's not too bad. Maybe I should keep doing that. And kind of went on from there. Once again, it's always great to have a little bit of pride in what we do, what we can pull off, and once you have it documented, you can look at it. You can be very self-critical, or you can just say, "Hey, I think that's okay. It's not perfect, as you said, warts and all, but a little brill trim here or there, and
like look at what I can do.
Look what I can do."
Yeah. We filmed all the things, and Lenny left the editing entirely in my hands. So the finished product, he had no idea how it would turn out.
Right. I think I remember you mentioning that where you were acquiring and learning some new things with some new programs and software. But I remember you said that he was kind of the brain child of the whole thing. But after everything was kind of more or less recorded, he just kind of dumped everything. He's like, okay, do what you do or just experiment. And so you were in control of that part of the editing.
Can I take this, Erin, here?
Make this something.
Make it something.
And so, I took it piece by piece, and I learned from each sketch that I edited, and it was it's a fun process for me, but it takes me forever to get anything done.
She's a very creative force. Well, just like when we did the Free for the Taking, I had no idea what she was capable of, or with the equipment that she had. And I have to admit, it exceeded all of my expectations. Because we were just, once again, flying by the seat of the pants. A lot of that, I think, we recorded upstairs, didn't we?
Because that was the studio album you guys did, and you did just that was just an audio or music project, so you recorded all the audio.
Yep.
And a pretty low, everything is pretty low tech, but you did it essentially.
Yeah, I recorded each part, had him listen to record the next part. So, yeah.
It worked out very well.
It did. It worked out surprisingly well. I have a very limited knowledge of how to do anything, so I'm essentially retrofitting what we want to do with what I've got.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and really, the first DVD I cut to show Len's lens, he was in sort of a down place, and I was like, God, I gotta get this done. I gotta show him like how amazing he is and how capable he is. And the look on your face when you saw it for the first time just made every ounce of effort
So
worth
you kind
it.
of were at a point, like, I don't know, you were a little bit of down in the dumps a little bit about where it was going to go, but it wasn't until you saw actual footage,
Well,
you were like, okay,
yeah.
we can do this.
It'd
Well,
been
once
a
you-
long time since we'd done it. Like I said, I took like 18 months to
Right.
put it together. So
Well, the thing is, too, is Erin and I are collaborators, but we're friends. We're confidants. That's one thing that friends do for each other. They sometimes say, "Hey, here, try this." It's like, wow, that's good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And it has just been a real true collaboration. And as they say, there is no I in TEAM.
it's true. Yep.
So I kind of did my part, and she did hers, and it's worked out very, very well.
And so, I know you guys just basically, as far as the launch or release of this project, you just basically uploaded on Facebook.
I just threw it on Facebook,
Is there
yeah.
any? Did you guys have any other plans of doing any other kinds of some kind of launch with it, or other platforms, or
I haven't even
an
thought
in-person production?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Well, like I said, this might be a good pivotal moment for us to have you come up and express interest in this, because we hadn't picked up the ball and run with it in quite a while. So sometimes you need a little bit of an oomph.
I'm just curious. When did you guys? Do you remember when you actually stopped filming?
It was probably 2022 that we stopped filming.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a little dust collecting on the stuff. Yeah.
But it's all there. It just takes me some time to collect
Yeah,
and make it a thing.
for myself, when it comes to video stuff, like I have some experience doing it too. And long time ago, I had a friend who did video, and she worked with some fairly well-known people, and so she had access to cameras, and then we started doing these shoots together, and then, which was fun, but it was basically like these visual shoots, and I was in a band at the time, and we kind of did, she would edit these videos that we were doing, and then it was kind of, I don't know, it was really influenced by like David Lynch and stuff, so a lot of the stuff was black and white, but we would have this thing of where we would have it projected on the band, kind of like Andy Warhol and Velvet Underground, where they would have like a multimedia kind of thing. That's kind of what we were kind of doing, and it was a lot of fun. But then years later, I had this idea of like trying to do a movie, and no idea what I was doing. And I worked actually with Vince, a friend of ours, Vince Gabriel, local legend in the music scene. We worked together, and we made this, what ended up being this half-hour vampire movie. And
What's it called?
It's absolutely terrible in every aspect. Like, it's not one of the cases like I talk about things where it's so bad it's good. This is just so bad it's bad. But it was called Rapture, and it was a half-hour vampire movie. But we did this project together, and it was so hard to do. It was so super fun, and it kind of got me even more into films, because it gave me even a bigger respect for what filmmakers have to do and go through, and people who create video-oriented art projects. But it was so hard, and it actually cost quite a bit of money, but the editing process was like forever, and I had a lot of patience, but it was crazy. So like, I know, and that's the only time I've done that. And since then I've moved on to like putting that energy into other things, but I know like doing, and I imagine doing something with what you guys are doing, where it's like a variety show, and there's lots of different skits and different things you guys are touching on. So I imagine the editing process for that has got to be even more complicated, like when to put this, and then you have all the music stuff.
I always equated it to boiling sap. With boiling sap, it's like 40 to 1.
Yeah.
You start out with 40 gallons of
Comedy gold.
and then you boil it all down to about 1 gallon, and you spread it around. So you have to really distill it. But the end product is hopefully very sweet, very sticky, and hopefully will last. Has a lingering aftertaste, perhaps.
There was, I think, yeah, they brought it back last year, and then around COVID they stopped it, obviously, like everything at one point, but they did it for a year, for quite a few years, and it was called this thing in Belfast. They would do it at the American Legion Hall. It was called the Vaudeville Review, and it was essentially kind of what you guys were doing, but a little bit more conservative.
Live on stage?
Live on stage, but a little bit more not as
Not wacky.
not as quite as wacky or as
Bummer.
as strange at times,
I liked
where it's
the
a little
term
bit more
unhinged.
absurd and ridiculous.
Unhinged is good.
Yeah,
yes.
unhinged.
Where it's a little bit more absurd and ridiculous, but the Vaudeville Review was very much that. Like, they have a little house band, and some of the people in that show were, part of the Maskers Theater in Belfast was a very big part of it, and so they'd have, there's some good actors in that organization. So at the time they were doing these skits, and it was a collaborative. Ando Anderson, Kristen Burkholder, they both were in. That was it was like their baby. But basically, what it was were they'd write these little skits, and it was all live. Live. It was all like a performance, and they do these little skits, and they'd have these little musical interludes. They'd have a house band, and then they have or they have skits, where there were scripts used, and then they'd have these little segments of where things were improvised. But it was, really what you guys were doing. But again, what you guys did with the Len stuff, it's got a little more of an edge to it, and it's a little, I don't know, ridiculous and a little bit more wacky.
Thank you.
But so I don't know,
Those are
that
great
was
compliments,
one of
actually.
the things that I thought, because I think, there's an audience out there for these kinds of things. Like, one of my favorite comedy show of all time is Mr. Show with Bob and David.
Great
Bob
choice,
Odenkirk,
yeah.
David Cross, two legends in comedy. And but essentially, some of the stuff is super dark and totally depraved, but super funny and satirical and a lot of social commentary, but really funny. But it's all like these really short little skits all tied together, and it just comes at you. And so I'm a big fan of that, of comedy, but of skit comedy. But so that's why I've asked you guys, twice, if you guys, because I think there's an audience for it. I know it's at times it seems like things that music or art that's kind of a little bit on the fringe side. Sometimes it seems like, oh, like I've been in that spot a lot where you're like, oh, there might not be an audience or a large enough audience to kind of support these little weird things that I do. But then you're sometimes really surprised, and you're like, oh no, maybe there is. And then I find is you don't, and it's part of the whole process. But when you stop. You eventually arrive to where you have the courage of your convictions, and you stop second guessing yourself, and you just kind of do it. Then I think those things kind of happen.
We always felt that sanatoriums were a great place.
I mean,
Yep,
ultimately,
that sums up this entire interview. That's great. That's the heart of the whole thing.
Like I said, we do not take ourselves too seriously.
We do not,
Plus,
but-
is there any better humor than self-deprecating or self-effacing humor? Isn't it the best?
ultimately, we decided we were going to just make it. Whether there was an audience for it, whether
We were doing it for us.
we were doing it for us, just to know that we
Like
could.
pure passion project.
Yeah.
Instead of,
Sure.
I always too look at a lot of things too as they're all like works in progress, and you're just kind of seeing, if things how it resonates or if it does resonate with people, and it's an experiment.
Sure. Well, kind of like life itself, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
one big experiment.
Totally. Yeah.
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 Well, once again, but no matter what ideas that you have, until you actually get them filmed and get them on a screen and can view what you've got, you have no idea what it's going to look like, how it's going to come across. So it's kind of like that's the proof in the pudding, is to just do it, Don't worry about it. It's not perfect. Don't take it too seriously, and just fly by the seat of your pants.
It's been very gratifying to have this tangible thing. You know, your album and this and the various projects that we've put together. Yeah, to know that I can finish a thing.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the other element. To start a project is sometimes can be the easy part. To bring it to fruition can be a little more difficult.
Yeah, that's the thing I see all the time. Like more so as far as like music related projects, but like I've been fortunate enough to put out a lot of music over the years, and I always have like different projects that I'm doing. But I know doing that, it's like giving birth to a degree. It's like, putting out that first thing is super, super hard. I know a lot of musician friends that are, super talented and in some ways like have a, higher skill set than maybe what I have in certain areas. And, but they are, and I get people are perfectionists or you're very particular about how something's going to be viewed or whatever. But I've seen that happen with so many musicians that I know that thing is so strong that they've been doing it for years, but they have nothing out there that is their calling card. They don't have a record. They can't let that go. They can't take that dive or plunge. And I find that whatever it is what it is, but to just do it, that to me is, whether it's like an utter failure or it is, a hit or whatever, either way, you kind of come out a winner because you really, at least in my experience, you really learn so much about the process. And just getting over that thing of like, maybe it's tied to your ego or your self-esteem, and it's all tied to the same kind of thing. But just like you have that initial thing and you learn a lot, and then it's like, okay, what's the next project? And you just kind of roll with that. But it's not, I always find it's not till that initial thing that, it's all going to be talk, or it's all going to be like this dream that you've had, or, so it seems like that's what you guys, how you're almost framing this release of the Lens, where it finally came out. But that's what I mean. It's like, for good or bad, it's like you learn so much.
It's kind of like marriage, like for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer.
I mean,
for sickness and health.
I could have spent more time perfecting things and, pulling in more of the material that we did, but I really wanted you to see the thing, and then you were so happy with the thing, and you wanted other people to see it. So
of course.
I said, all right, it's going to be like 15 minutes. There it goes. It's on the internet. That's what it is now.
Yes.
That's one of the things that you just mentioned, too, that kind of drives me personally crazy. About like sometimes with certain movies that I love, or film projects, or even albums for that matter. But being that we're kind of doing like a variety show, kind of it's more closer related to movies. But I have come across that a lot, where a Blu-ray or something that I have, a movie that I own, where the director has a commentary, or you see an interview with the director, and it could be a musician talking about an album that he's done. And they go on that whole tangent of like, oh, I wish I could have done this better, or I could have gone back, and it's like, no, I think it's like, because everything has those imperfections, but that's usually where the gold is, when you have those imperfections. Because again, like, we're not pretentious people. You guys are not pretentious, but you're having fun. But it's like, to me, when you have those imperfections, that like gives it like a human quality, Well,
the other thing that happens too, I noticed this used to happen during recordings. Sometimes you'd have a blooper or something unexpected, and first thought is, oh God, we got to edit that out or erase it. It's like, oh, wait a minute, let's bring it back. Listen to it 2 or 3 times, and strangely enough, it fits.
Yeah,
it adds. So you realize that what in the beginning might seem to be an imperfection that you want to eradicate works out just perfect.
Absolutely.
So you have to be not too quick to correct something that might be okay by
not
itself.
Not too married to how you think it should be.
Yeah. Sometimes the unpredictable is better than the original than the original thought.
So, did you have any favorite skits in the program?
The thing that I love the most, and I watched it again the other day, Len's Lens, and I think my favorite part is with the whole segment with the masks, the use of COVID masks.
Oh, okay. You like that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I really like that one a lot.
Especially with the little slingshot, the little
Yep,
dog
I think
turd.
that's really really funny.
My favorite.
The draw thing, when you guys
the
are having
draw thing, yeah, that was
great.
That was great. I had this idea where I have the ability in the program to like follow what he was doing and make an animation, but I was getting down to the wire of like I want to show him this, so I just pulled in whatever elements I had in the program. I was like, this is a drawing, and then I didn't have a marker squeak, so I had to. I had to use a door squeak and kind of retrofit the sound effect.
Like you sample the recorder.
Oh, I have a whole library of sound effects. I've collected old sound effect CDs and stuff,
okay.
so
Cool.
I'm just using what I've got. So I had a door squeak and something else, and I was like, I'm layering these, and this is the marker squeak, and it kind of works.
Worked very well. One thing I like personally is the hook. Remember the hook to pull out the
Gong show.
Yeah, exactly. The hook comes out, and we kind of, because that was the lady in there was my significant other.
I have to say too, that was another thing that the show brought me. That reminded me of the classic Gong show.
Yep, another influence, of course.
Definitely had that kind of aesthetic. Huge fan of the Unknown comic. There was, not to get off on a tangent, but I can't remember the name of the guy who played the Unknown comic, but I remember as a kid seeing that. I probably was like watching it. I probably saw it, the Gong show, like it was reruns at the time. Yeah, it was like 70s, I think, early 70s, 60s. But
right. Chuck Barris, if I remember right, was it Chuck Barris?
Yeah, and they had reruns on. And I remember watching it on cable at my grandmother's house as a kid, and it was the first time I saw it. But I remember seeing the Unknown comic, and that was kind of like the first time I ever saw somebody wearing a mask and doing comedy, and like this wacky, weird person. But anyway, I can't remember his name, the guy who played him in real life, but I guess he put out a book, autobiography, and I've heard from multiple people that it was like one of the best books they've ever read.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, but definitely I saw an influence of that show on what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we're closing up on about 45 minutes.
Nice.
Go team.
So,
Go team.
I really thank you guys for doing this. This is super fun. This is, again, my favorite thing to do on this ridiculous and silly channel that I have. And so, I love doing interview segments. And so if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, or talk about some new things coming up, or things cooking, anything pertaining to that.
Well, once again, I think you're showing interest in our little project. Is maybe a little jump start and give us a little incentive to go ahead. The weather's clearing, which is always good weather is always an additional help to help promote our creative juices. And just a matter of trying to get back to the drawing board. As we know, Erin and I live quite close together now, so I know we don't have to travel any great amount of distance.
Very true.
Kind of like to share with listeners, I'm upstairs and she's downstairs. We can almost
Literally, yeah. Literally.
Yeah. Upstairs, it's like, Erin, are you up yet? Shut up, I'm still asleep. Are you sure you're awake? Shut up, I'm still asleep. So anyway, we're within shouting distance of each other.
Yeah. So there's definitely more to come, I think. Lenny's getting that groove back all the time. Ideas are flowing.
When I have to ask this question, just kind of hit me, but how did you guys meet? How did you guys...
Open mic.
Was it at Fog or before that?
Matter of fact, too,
It was at Highlands.
Was it Highlands?
It was the Highlands.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Highlands was a open mic that was really great.
At a Skull Cafe.
Great time,
Mainstream
great
times.
place.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the first. There was a time there was so many open mics in Mid-Coast, and that was one of the first ones. and probably one of the biggest ones. I mean, there were so many people that would come to that. It was nuts.
That was a good venue, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, when it closed with no warning, and that was it.
It was such a great place. I think Fog also was, but it really was a place where they were really into cultivating new art projects, new bands. Because I had a
Very
couple of
much.
bands that I was involved, and one or two that I'm still involved in. That those were definitely springboards, and they gave us lots of gigs to play and to try new things. And I know for other musicians that I knew or that I know of, they also did that, and it really, really fortunate. So yeah, it was a pretty magical time between both of those places.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, they almost got to the point of being iconic for a short amount of time.
Yeah,
And I miss both venues. They were both very instrumental.
other places I remember that were trying to don't ching.
Don't fret. Yeah, it can be that way sometimes. Yeah,
We'll be here every Monday. Try the veal. So. But I remember those two places, Highlands and Fog, were at one point so popular that all these other restaurants were like, okay, we're going to start doing the same thing. And it just
It was
wasn't
like
as
it opened,
successful.
like, every night of the
Yep.
week. You just had to pick where you wanted to go.
Indeed.
And
Yep.
now there's such a dearth of places to perform. Yeah.
But yeah, if that's good for you guys, I want to really thank having Lenny and Erin, and fingers crossed that we get to see more creative adventures by these guys. So thanks again, and we will see you next time.
Thanks,
Peace.
Jason.
Thank you.